Dana Dogherty. He was born August 7th, 1908 in Lowell, Massachusetts. The son of Albert and Ann Doherty. And he went to school at Danvers High School, where he was on the football team and was a quarterback, and they had a successful team there. He later went to Springfield College, which he was proud of. That's why you see him always wearing an Springfield College hat, jacket and sweater and everything, which he was a quarterback of the football team, where he was very successful. He graduated in 1930, came to Brewer, and coached in Brewer from 31 through 1947. And he coached the basketball, the football, and the baseball team. And there's a story, in 31 was the first time they beat Bangor?
Yes.
Huh? Because Bangor had an ineligible player?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
That's the story that...
They lost 19-0 or something like that.
18-0.
18-0.
Yeah, and then later they...
discovered that.
They did that.
I find it interesting that Bangor did not absorb a loss and Brewer did not absorb a victory.
Okay.
Technically in that case,
Right,
I'm not sure why.
right.
But anyway, keep going.
All right. He married Avis Maddox,
Okay.
who was his first wife, who died of cancer. And
really?
He had 2 children. Dwight, who was actually became the town manager in Lisbon and Pittsfield area, and Susan, who was there when I was there, and was a really well-looking girl. And every time she came out, all the counselors would stop and try to catch up with Susan.
She'll like to hear that, Jim.
She really would.
Is she coming? She's married to David Lawrence.
Right. I've talked with David Lawrence 3 or 4 times.
Okay.
And he is coming.
Okay, that's good. I'd like to meet him because I knew Susan, in passing and everything.
Yeah.
But of course they got married afterwards. But
right.
Susan was a very, very nice looking girl.
Okay.
She
would love to hear that.
Huh? You tell her. I don't know if she probably doesn't remember me, but that's all right. Married his second wife, 1960-61. Jenny Fellows was her name. And she already had 2 children, Jeff Fellows, who lived in Augusta, and Judy Skeam, S-K-E-H-A-M, who lived in Farmingdale, and in that area. And at that time, in 1942 to 1951, he was the athletic director in Coney High School.
Okay.
And he coached cross-country, basketball, and gymnastics at Coney High School. And the day camp that we have here, I can tell you a little bit about that story.
So baseball, gymnastics, and
basketball.
And
basketball. Yep. So that was his coaching career. And I think he retired in the 60s, and they kept going. I don't know what he did there, but afterwards, after he retired from teaching and coaching, he went to Haystack down the coast and did a lot of silver jewelry. And actually became really well known for it, and went to a lot of the shows, and his jewelry was well sought of. Became a very high-end jewelry maker. He died in 1980 at the age of 88. And I gave you his
Did I get you anything?
I'm good, thank you.
I'm okay. Thanks, thanks, Ben.
Yeah, let's see. Whatever. When did you say? Yeah. Okay. The camp he has, the day camp he ran for 1931 to 1967. He sold the camp in 62 to another Major General Parks, who owns it. He just passed away. I think his wife owns the camp now. And to tell you some story about his day camp, he It was a day camp from where you pick up. He had a station wagon that he borrowed from Husson, and in the back of the station wagon, he took out the back seats, and in the back seats he put in benches, so he could carry about 10 kids. And what happened was when you went to get in the car, you took a number, and that was your location in the station wagon. And if you got number 1, that was sitting next to Coachy, and that was called the monkey bite seat, because that's what he loved doing.
The
monkey bite seat.
The monkey bite.
And on the way out, he had all kinds of camp songs they would sing, and they'd stop at Footman, Hillman, the milk, and pick up things of milk, and also water and wood, because the camp, as you can see, needed that. And I remember one day he got stopped by the police, and we said, Coach. We called him Coach. We never called him Dana. Everybody called him Coach. He was stopped for going too slow, because he was singing with the kids, and that's the only time he said he ever got picked up by the police, because he was going too slow coming out here, whatever. And then when I was a counselor, I would pick up the kids on the lake here. So we'd go up and I'd take up 5 or 6 kids, and Brian Hamill would pick up some kids, and we'd have about 15 campers most of the time, and their ages were from 5 to 11. He'd take them 11, as long as they went 12 after the fall or whatever. And in the camp itself, we used to teach archery, which was up by the railroad tracks. We'd have one of my big jobs was to teach the kids rowing. He didn't have a boat. We just had a rowboat. So every child had to learn how to row a boat. And this is back, in the 50s. Nobody had power boats. So everybody had to learn how to row the boat. We taught swimming lessons to the kids. I got my Red Cross certification, life-saving, from him. Just about drowned me carrying him. He was a really stocky, heavy. Never lost that. He was just a solid man. And then we'd go play kick the can and the flags, and we'd have a scavenger hunt periodically. He'd hide things of that nature. And after lunch, he had a story hour. And in the camp itself, when he had rainy days, he'd have a big tarp he'd lay out in the camp. I think that's why his wife got upset about that, kids being in the camp. But he always had a story hour after that. And then we would follow up with that with afternoon swimming. We had about an hour and a half swimming, depending on the day. And some of the better kids we took across, made them swim across the lake. And then out in front of the camp, there was an island. We made them swim from there. We used to take day trips around the lake. We went to, one of the big things we used to go was up to the mountain, up to Sunset up there, where you go up through the crevices of the rock. And Dana would hide in the rocks and scare the kids and that kind of thing. Up there was a woman by the name of Marilyn Chapman, who was a New York City well-to-do woman, and she had a swimming pool. It was the first swimming pool in this area, and we used to take the kids there and swimming in a swimming pool, which was a huge thing for kids at that time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and we'd take them out to the island and jump off the rocks on the island. And one of his big things was he could jump off the rock and he could down and come up underneath on the other side. So as counselors, we knew what was happening. So we used to say, "What happened to Dana?" And the kids would go bonkers. I said, "You guys got life-saving and all this." So we play along with it as a game, and pick him up and try to find him. Then finally he would submerge again under, and then come up where he went in the water, and all the kids went absolutely crazy. So that was one of the highlights of the season. We used to go across with the teachers' colony. and do that. And one of the interesting things, day trips we used to take, we used to go down to the graves, to the cemeteries, and do that. And one of the cemeteries down there is James Barfield, who was a Civil War general, who is buried in one of the. We used to tell a little bit about the Civil War and the people that were buried. There was a couple of soldiers in there that are buried in there, and they don't know where they're from. They're actually from the South. They got shipped up here by mistake, and whatever. But there's the whole history of the cemeteries up there that we used to visit during the day, and that type of thing, and do those type of activities. But all these kids, we were at, from age 5 to 11 to 12, were very, very emotional about Dana and coaching, because he made a huge impression on these people. If you talk to people who went to the camp, they all can say nothing but good things about him and what he did for them growing up, especially in the summer, because they're all very impressionable. And remember Dana as being sort of a godfather for most of the kids, and teaching them, about life and being outside. Because some of these kids were very well-to-do families, and I don't know, in the summertime we saw that was their outlet. To come down to the camp. Let's go right down here. He archery, rowing. Yeah, put that in. When he closed the camp, people were really upset about it, because we used to, it was a big thing to do. His camp, it still didn't have water. One of the things, if a child, one of the boys misbehaved, their punishment was to stack wood. So we had a big wood pile. We'd carry wood down, and if the kid got upset or something, we'd make him go up and stack wood to calm down. That was their big punishment at the camp, that type of thing. So he was just a well-respected man, and still in this area. He used to go down to Footman's. He loved to play bridge, him and his second wife. They would play bridge a couple nights a week with the Footmans that had a camp further down on the lake. I know that was part of his entertainment, that type of thing. But after he retired, the jewelry making was his big thing that he enjoyed more than anything. I hope the children have some of his jewelry works, because I remember him selling them. He did very well with that, that type of thing. So whatever. He never talked too much about his coaching. He loved the coaching and he did all that, but he never really, he was more focused on the kids and that type of thing. Dana Corey was named after Dogherty, who's your coach now.
Yes.
He made such, that's the spin-off on Dana Dogherty.
Yeah.
Because he made that kind of an impression on people, that, to name their kids after him and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I had a chance to talk to Slip Corey a couple of times about Dana.
Yeah.
And he's, echoed a lot of the things that you said. What a great coach, what a great gentleman he was.
Yeah.
How important sportsmanship was.
Right. I don't know what his record was coaching in Brewer. What anything about? Do you have any? Do you have all?
We
his
do
records?
have that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did they have a success? Because
Some sports it was a winning record, and some sports
I know you
like
played
basketball not so good, but baseball it was 80 wins and 40 losses. Football 47 wins and 26 losses and 12 ties.
Yeah, you had 2 of them with Bangor.
He had winning seasons in 9 of 11 years in football.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
That's well, if you look at his team, God, he had big turnout. God, his kids,
Oh yeah.
huge, a lot of kids.
Especially for that time and era.
It was well done. Because he was the only person. I mean, he ran the whole show.
Yeah.
That's hard to believe today. You only have one coach for football or basketball or even baseball today. So he was it.
What were your fondest memories of Coach Dogherty?
Just learning how to get my life saving from him, and just experience with the other kids. I probably would have done it if I started college, so I needed more money. So they didn't pay as much as I wanted it. So I ended up painting camps up the lake here, basically. But that's the reason I didn't do it anymore. But that's when Brian took over and some of the other kids took over. But just meeting the man and knowing him was probably the best thing, and the memories. I mean, on my Facebook page I put up his some of the things. I have those pictures here, and a lot of people around respond to that very well. That type of thing. So I hope his daughter gets a chance to see all this and do this. Susan, just like I say, she was a very nice, great girl growing up. She, whatever, and
even if she can't come, we'll make sure that she has access to be able to see the video that we're producing and the induction ceremony itself of her dad.
Okay, great,
so, yeah.
great. Yeah, I'd love to come to that.
Dana was a very kind person. He felt very strongly about the development of young people. Very much, I mean, back then it wasn't a co-ed camp. It was a bunch of little kids, little guys. And he wanted people to have fun. He was competitive, but it was always in the context of wanting to teach people how to play the game in the right way, skill-wise, but also play the game in the right way from the standpoint of sportsmanship. So it wasn't all about the winning part. It was about those other pieces as well. So he was committed to youth development, and he always kept the camp at that age, that 6, 7 years to 12 years, because you couldn't go there after you were 12 years old. So that's an age group that he felt was really needed to be nurtured in a formative way. And he had other kids, you know, at Brewer High School and at Coney, the older kids that he worked with in those capacities. But I think he really thrived and really looked forward to working with younger kids during the summer.
You know, what qualities did your dad, who played for him for 3 different sports for 3-4 years, acquire from him in his own coaching?
Dad would always preference some of the things that he would tell me or tell us with, this is what I got from Coach Dogherty. And one was, know what you're doing, have a plan, make sure that people pay attention. Always have people thinking team first, individual second. Also, if they are doing well, tell them. If they need to make changes, make sure they know. And in some cases, you may be able to tell them about making changes in a very level way. And every once in a while, it may have to be a little bit harder. But that's not going to hurt them. It's going to make them better. Dana wasn't a yeller per se. Dad wasn't a yeller unless he wanted to get your attention, but he wasn't a yeller as far as he had a stern voice. Dad had a stern voice, and he had a look. And Dana Dogherty, from being in his camp, had a look. And you knew when they looked at you that you better be paying attention or something was up. And your eyes, and they were very big on that, your eyes had to make contact with theirs, you know, and not drift. And I know it's hard for kids today to do it as far as that goes, but that was the one way that they knew that you were at least engaged in one way. But, you know, they wanted you to become the best person and best athlete that you could be for you, not to be better than somebody else. Because if you start comparing yourself to other people, then sometimes you get disappointed, or you're trying to do things that you're just not capable of. And sometimes doing the things you're capable of will help your team a lot more than trying to do things that you're not. And I see that today. Kids trying to hit home runs or get a launch angle or something of that nature there, rather than just making contact or trying to make great plays and maybe not make the routine plays. And it all comes down to basically anything, whether it's schoolwork or anything, is being consistent and consistent in what you do.
What was the relationship between Coach Dogherty and your dad? Like, start from the beginning.
Oh, wow. I think Dad eventually looked at Coach Dogherty not only as a coach, mentor, etc., but also maybe as a little bit of a father figure, because my father's father passed away when he was young. And I can also tell the fondness of all the players talked about Coach Dogherty with fondness, but Dad would get a little twinkle in his eyes when he talked about him, so I know we were really special to that. But, and he would say, you know, he would take me aside sometimes and talk to me. Dad was a redhead and he was a fiery redhead, so naturally it's things, he could get upset about things, not totally lose control, but Coach would kind of reel him back in again and get himself squared away for either the next pitch or whatever he was doing, whatever sport he was playing, etc. But he always talked about, he got me to do this, he got me settled in, he got me interested in doing things, going outside myself. Dad was, I looked at his yearbook, and I mean, he did everything, president of the class, essays, you know, honor society, etc. And he attributed a lot of that to what Coach Dogherty taught him, not only through sports, but approaching schoolwork and life itself. So my father played 3 sports for Coach Dogherty: basketball, football, and baseball. And through those experiences, and also had him, of course, as a gym teacher, etc. So through those experiences, his contacts, up and downs, and the teachings of all areas. And as I've mentioned before, Coach Dogherty spent a lot of time talking about life things just as well. Things can happen on the field, can happen to in life. Adversity happens everywhere. And I think that's what kind of drew him in, also as maybe a father figure too, not only a coach, but a father figure and somebody that he wanted to emulate in his life.
So clearly, Coach Dogherty had an immense influence on your dad. So talk about, from your perspective, how you became Dana Corey, how you were named, why you were named.
Well, I was 9 years, maybe I'll say 8 years. It'll make my sister feel better. 8 years younger than Donna, and I don't think I was supposed to be. I'm not quite sure, but anyhow, in her mind, I wasn't ever supposed to be, but we've gotten over that now that we're both in our 70s. So I think Dad thought so much of Coach Dogherty that, knowing that probably I was going to be his only son, that he named me after Dana. And I think as we went along, I learned more about, this is how I want you to be. I mean, I'm going to teach you a lot of things, how to be a man, but also manners, how to treat people, etc. Doing the right thing, which he was very big on, and that's when the look might come into play sometimes. But and respecting people, and no matter what, even if you don't respect the person, respect the position. He was very big on that too, which would be interesting in today's politics. But then he would say, you know, I'm going to get you to Dana Dogherty's camp, and I want you to be able to see what I saw and learn from him at a younger age. what he has taught me. And he said, I think, one, that'll help your growth. And I'm just a little kid, so some of this is going in and out of my ears, but I remember it because I've thought of it all the way up through. So he always reminded me that I was named after Dana. And he's always reminded me of the times that he had. And as I got to know Dana and got a little later into camp, and then was a camp counselor there, then I could see why my father felt the way he did about Coach Dogherty. I mean, he made you want to do things, and he made you want to do the right things. And some of the things that he did, I mean, my dad was active for a long, long time. Coach Dogherty was active at camp. I mean, would play king of the float. And you'd have 10 kids trying to get him off the float. He wasn't tall in stature. He might have been I think he might have been 5'5", maybe. But he was built like a rock. And you couldn't get him off. We'd have to have the camp counselors, who would help out when I was a counselor too, to get him off the float. And he could hold his breath forever. But I mean, it was just, you were just amazed. And I'm still amazed today at some of the things he could do, and some of the things he got some of the kids who, one, were scared of the water or were scared of different things, and going on some of the hikes we went on, some of the other things we did, playing some of the games that we used to do, capture the flag and running through bushes and everything else, and working as a team. I mean, you know, those were some of the happiest times of my life. But also, those kids around will have fond memories of him. I know I have run into a few of them in the past, and we talk about it. And when we talk about it, it's just like he's here. And those are the kinds of memories you want to have as a person as you get older. You want to be able to grab those. If you're having a bad day, go back to those memories and remember some of those and the people you're around. Excellent. There was an island when I was a camper, per se. That's what we used to call a camper. When I was a camper, we would go to, and we'd go up in the boats, and we'd get off, we'd eat, have a little cookout there, and everything. And this was on Lucerne or Phillips, whichever you want to call it. And then he would say, okay, there's a mermaid that lives right near the island, and I'm going to go swim down. I'm going to dive off, and I'm going to swim down, and I'm going to see her. And I'll be up in a little while. So he would take the dive, and it looked like Tarzan going into the water. And 30 seconds would pass. A minute would pass. A minute and a half would pass. And for those of us that had never been there before, it would be up to like 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and now we're starting to panic. We're talking to the counselors like, Coach Doggy's gonna drown. They said, no, don't worry. He's down there talking with her. He'll be fine. So he'd come up after about 5 minutes. So you kept thinking, well, the mermaid thing, you know, what is this? Why can he stay in the water so long? I mean, we don't understand it. Then when I got to be a counselor, he said, let's go to Treasure Island. So we went out to Treasure Island, and he taught me how to swim and got me my lifeguard license and everything, which I did later on. But he said, okay, you're gonna dive in with me. I said, how long are we staying down there? And he goes, you're gonna see my trick. So I dove down, we get down under there, and then I followed him for a little ways, and then he pointed, and there was an opening. And you could go in that opening and up, and there was an air passageway. So he'd go down there, and he'd stay down there for a while. And of course, having a good laugh by himself, he said, oh, I used to laugh like crazy because I could kind of hear you guys from where I was. And then he said, okay, well, so that was one of those things. It was like, at least now I know what's going on. But as a kid, it was like, oh no, he's gonna drown.
I think that's one of the things that, in speaking with Bob and John, he seemed like he had a great personality.
Oh, he did. He did. And you knew it. I mean, you knew his moods, but usually everything was, he was like a kid. I mean, he was a kid with kids, except he was a grown kid with kids, and he also knew where the line was. I mean, that's one thing about Dad and Coach and I, there was always still that line. But, I mean, the fondness that he had for everybody that went to that camp. And I mean, teaching archery was always interesting too. That had a few interesting things of kids not quite knowing what they were supposed to do and trying to do it before they understood. So he made sure that us counselors knew all the steps that went into doing all the things that we did. And you know, it's just, like I said, it's something you can go back and you can grasp. And as I said, there's a lot of memories I don't have of things I did, or I know about, you know, my teammates and everything we did. But these are the good memories that you can go back to when you're a kid.
How did you get back and forth to camp?
Oh. He used to pick us up. My grandfather's store was across from the old middle school, which was high school for a while. So he would pick a group of us up there, and he would pick up some more kids. Well, you didn't want to be the one that got set next to Coach. Because we would go driving along, and all of a sudden he would reach over, and there's a couple of pressure spots on your knee. And he would get those pressure spots, and they'd go, monkey bite, and your knee would just cramp right up. So you hustled to make sure that you would get in the back first, and nobody was going to sit next to Coach. And then, because his stories on the way, we sing on the way down, but that's how we got to camp. And then we hiked. There's a small road that led in, and then we had to walk through the woods and then down the tracks and to his camp. We also had the adventurous time where I was feeling a little, not antsy, I just thought that I was going to throw a rock and I was going to hit a hive. Well, it was a distance off. I didn't think I was going to hit the hive. I hit the hive. It was a yellow jacket hive. And we started hightailing it through the woods. And it's amazing that they know who did it. I think I got stung 7 times, and that was a lesson learned, plus the fact that I put people in jeopardy by throwing that rock. So yeah, that was one of those I had to go home and tell my father the story, but I had all the bites anyhow. But yeah, it was fun. It was a great learning experience, and I hope that kids can have something like this, or able to, and it would be great if people that, I mean, we had kids who were from all different walks. And, you know, it would be great if they had camps like this and people like Dana Dogherty that, you know, I think would help a lot of kids out early on.
Well, we have some stats, right, where the team, well, this was a stat that we just uncovered. They were state runners-up in 1939 in baseball? Yes. Baseball. Yes. And I said, Jim, we have a problem. They're not on David's banner hanging in the gymnasium.
Oh yeah.
And so it's
came across that a little while ago.
And that's because of this. Yeah, the MPA began recognizing state champions in 1940, not until 1947, and this happened in 1939. And I said, so we're gonna update, you know, this. David has this state championship thing that we have on the website, but I'm like, it's too bad it can't be on the banner. I mean, was there any? Well, I mean, was there any information about that? Do you remember about that state game?
They lost to Lewiston 10-3. They had beaten St. Louis of Biddeford in the semifinals. And then I'm not sure in Waterville.
I know they didn't have a very good basketball record, but their football and their baseball records were really quite formidable.
But the 1938-39 team was a good basketball team. They were like 15-3 or so.
Yeah, and in football they beat AT&T here twice.
That's right.
I saw him
96 or 7.
I was over at the Eastern Maine basketball tournament, and he was sitting at the scorer's table, and I went over and I spoke to him, and I said, Coach Dogherty, I said, and he looked up at me, and I said, you probably don't remember me, Dana Corey. And he goes, I could tell by your eyes, and I kind of recognize your face. He goes, but I recognize you now, but in 30 seconds I may not know you. He said, I'm struggling with memory. I think he had Alzheimer's.
Okay.
And he said,
Yeah.
you know, I'm struggling with that. He said, but I'm so glad that you spoke to me. And I don't think it was that much longer. And I don't even remember what year it was, but
I'm thinking it's 1997.
Oh,
He
I
passed
didn't.
away
Oh, wow.
at age 88. Something
Yeah.
like that.
yeah.
What do you think he would think of if he was alive today, being inducted into the Brewer Athletic Hall of Fame?
One, I think he would be very humble, which is the way that he is. He would be very happy. He would also take, and he would attribute most of his induction to the players and the people that he had been associated with, and of course family and everything else, because he was always one for, you may do things, but it's all those around you that build up the support and get you to where you're going. Nobody really does everything on their own. And I mean, I would love to hear him talk. I really would. I can imagine what the talk he would give. And it wouldn't be anything about himself. He might talk about his family some, but it would be about his players. It would be about people that didn't play sports for him that affected him in his life, and people that were teaching at that time, and probably other members that were our other school kids that he was around. But he would incorporate everybody into it.
Did he must have known that you were named after him.
Oh yes, oh yeah, yeah.
Did
Yeah. He brought it every once in a while. That was one of his things. We'd be doing something, and then all of a sudden he'd turn to me and goes, you do remember you were named after me, right? So it's kind of a reminder of, you know, not that I was really mischievous a lot, but every once in a while with a group of kids, you kind of get going. So yeah, he'd just kind of come over by me and say, you do remember you were named after me, right? So that was my wake-up call. Okay, back to reality.
That's great.
Excellent.
Well, I'm David Lawrence, and unusual to be at such a ceremony as honoring a coach that I called coach all the time that I knew him, but I never played for him. I never played against him, but he was coach because that's who the man is. He happens to be my father-in-law. And I had to ask the big question of coach. And it wasn't, did I make the team? Can I marry your daughter? And fortunately, he applied in the affirmative. And Susan and I celebrated our 57th wedding anniversary this year. I know about Coach and his inaugural career of coaching following his graduation from Springfield College. Of course, he made sure that I knew that he was all New England in football at Springfield College. And but the stories he told of learning to coach and doing the X's and O's and trying to inspire and motivate young men, all men at that time, of course, in sports, was something that he really enjoyed, and he knew that he created impact in kids' lives. Here at Brewer, the Brewer Witches that he would proudly talk about, and almost every conversation about the Brewer Witches ended up with victories over Bangor High School. And I can't remember the scores, but he remembered every one of them, and the winning plays that caused those scores to be larger for the Witches than for the Bangor Rams. I did not know much about Brewer High School as a high school student here in Maine. I'm a graduate of Holton High School. We did have to play the Rams in basketball a few times, but never did Brewer. So I learned a lot about Brewer from Coach, about the community spirit, about the support of athletics here that he felt allowed him to be successful, and encouraged what he described as a transition of sports to success here at Brewer High School. Very proud of that. And he was proud of what sports can mean in a person's life, how it teaches so many life skills, from teamwork to wins and losses and building of character. And Coach had the opportunity to be impactful in student lives and in younger kids' lives with his summer program. The family had a cottage down on Phillips Lake, right behind the Lake Lucerne Inn, down over the hill. In fact, you walk the railroad tracks to the cottage. But at that cottage every summer for, I don't know, 8 or 10 years or more, he ran, much longer actually, because even when he was at Augusta, he ran the boys' day camp there. So a lot of kids from the Bangor Brewer area were his campers. And the tales he would tell of coaching them predominantly in water sports there, and teaching life's values and skills as a young fellow, teaching them curiosity. One of the great stories is about Money Spring. They would have a trek through the woods to find this natural spring. The night before, he'd gone there and dropped nickels and dimes. And so for these young, impressionable 6 to 10-year-old kids, they found money when they went to Money Springs. And the other thing was who got to sit beside Coach in his Chevrolet station wagon, because he picked up the kids and the cartons of milk each day from Footman's Dairy, I believe he said, and for their lunch. Who got to sit beside Coach? Because at some point, whether it was going to camp or coming from camp, they would have a monkey bite on the knee from Coach. And that was the mark of distinction for those young campers, to have Coach give them a monkey bite. We talked about taking the job at Brewer High School as a brand new college graduate. He said, I tried not to be nervous, and I don't think Coach ever was nervous because he made everyone feel like an instant friend. So Coach, as you may know from pictures and things, only stood about 5'4", but don't let that absence of height diminish his presence, because when he was in the room, you knew he was in the room. Big handshakes, big laughs, and lots of enthusiasm. Regardless of the subject, Coach was enthusiastic. And he embraced humanity, he embraced athletics for the role that they played in people's lives as participants and as spectators, that he saw that as an important role of society. And he thought, he always connected the role of teaching to athletics. Yes, he wanted to win desperately, but it was a teaching experience that was fundamental to him. And he, I think, left a lot of his players with that impression that they learned the game, but they learned about themselves as well. Coach that I'd like to share, because you know him and his record speaks as a coach, but I knew him later in life. In fact, I knew him after he retired from coaching and being an athletic director. And I call him the Renaissance man because he had such diverse interest and really talents. Here's a guy with short, stubby fingers who decides jewelry is going to be his passion, and it became his passion. He attended the Haystack camp in Maine, Haystack Fine Arts, we'll have to get the right name of it, Haystack Crafts Camp in Deer Isle, where they brought in famous teachers of all kinds of art forms, and Coach learned how to do silver, which was his favorite medium, but also gold, and he had lost wax, including the wedding bands that Susan and I wear. He made for our marriage. And Coach really perfected his technique. He loved to set stones in sterling, and he made both pins or brooches, and he made drops that hang on necklaces. A lot of those with exotic stones, and looked very nice. Made a few things of gold as well to complement that. He had a whimsical side in his art forms too, that because like in life, he made fun. Wherever he was, there was going to be fun present. Interesting, one of his other contributions was gastronomically. He was a wonderful cook. He made pies, that's probably my favorite, that's what I remember, where he would never use a bought pie crust, make it from hand, make all the stuff, and then make elaborate coverings of the two crust pies with carve-outs and things like that. So the other was German chocolate cake. I think I'll probably talk about desserts, but anything that was food related, he was accomplished at that as well. He enjoyed travel too. He and his second wife, after the wife of Susan's mother from Brewer, after her death in 1961, he married another school teacher, and in retirement they traveled a lot. And they loved to take cruises. And it seems on cruises there was this night of entertainment. Well, Coach would always dress up and be some character and perform for these things. So Coach, I said something about his presence, being short of stature and large in presence. He was presence wherever he was, and brought joy, brought humor, and everyone felt better because he was in their lives.